Have you ever found yourself watching an elderly family member and feeling that something isn't quite right? Small changes in behavior, subtle shifts in energy, or moments of confusion that make you pause and wonder? Many of us assume death comes suddenly for our aging loved ones, a heart attack, a stroke, a peaceful passing in their sleep. But what medical professionals know, and what families often discover too late, is that the body typically sends quiet messages for months, sometimes even a year or more, before life reaches its conclusion. These whispered warnings can be easy to miss. They blend into what we consider normal aging, and by the time we recognize their true significance, precious moments for preparation, meaningful conversations, and proper care planning have slipped away. In this video, we'll explore 7 critical warning signs that often appear in the final year of an elderly person's life. These signals may start gently, almost imperceptibly, but recognizing them early can completely transform how you approach this sacred time with someone you love. Why should you stay with me until the end of this video? Because this knowledge isn't just about acknowledging decline, it's about empowerment. When you can recognize these signs, you gain the ability to provide better care, create more meaningful final memories, and ensure your loved one's journey concludes with dignity, comfort, and peace. The insights I'll share today come from years of compassionate work with families facing these exact situations. They've told me how much they wish they had understood these signals sooner, not to prevent the inevitable, but to be emotionally present and practically prepared for what was coming. By watching until the end, you'll learn how to navigate these changes with wisdom and heart, ensuring you're not caught off guard but instead equipped to make thoughtful decisions during an emotionally challenging time. This knowledge brings peace of mind and helps you offer the love and support your family member truly needs when they're most vulnerable. Stay with me. Understanding these 7 signs is more than just awareness. It's about making the remaining time as beautiful, meaningful, and comfortable as possible. These insights truly can make all the difference for both you and your loved one. If you haven't already, please subscribe and activate the notification bell so you don't miss future videos that could help you navigate difficult family situations. Your support means everything to me. And if you find value in today's message, please like and share it with others who might benefit. I always appreciate your feedback. Comment 1 if you connect with this topic, or 0 if you'd prefer different content. Your input helps me create videos that truly serve your needs. Now, let's begin with the first sign. Number 1, unexplained weight loss despite normal eating. One of the earliest and most telling signs that someone may be approaching their final chapter is progressive, unintentional weight loss, even when their eating habits appear relatively normal. It often starts innocently enough. You might notice their wedding ring spinning loosely on their finger. Perhaps their favorite sweater now hangs from their shoulders, or they need to add another notch to their belt. These could easily be dismissed as minor changes, but they deserve our careful attention. What makes this weight loss particularly significant is that it typically happens without effort or intention. Your loved one isn't dieting or exercising more. Their body is simply changing in profound ways beneath the surface. Medical professionals recognize this as a significant indicator because it signals fundamental shifts in how the body functions. The digestive system becomes less efficient at extracting nutrients. Metabolism changes dramatically. The body may begin prioritizing essential functions over maintaining muscle mass or fat stores. The physical impact goes deeper than appearance. This isn't just about looking thinner, it's about the body's vital systems starting to wind down. Muscle wasting, or sarcopenia, accelerates during this time, affecting not just strength, but also immune function, balance, and energy reserves. I remember visiting Martha, an 89-year-old woman whose daughter called me concerned about her mother's rapid weight loss. "She still eats breakfast with me every morning," her daughter explained, "but she's lost nearly 20 pounds in 4 months. When I spoke with Martha's doctor, he confirmed what I suspected. This wasn't just age thinning, but a sign of multiple systems beginning to slow. You might notice your loved one leaving more food on their plate or taking smaller portions. They might comment that foods don't taste the same anymore. A genuine physiological change as taste buds and smell receptors lose sensitivity. Some elderly people report feeling full after just a few bites, while others simply lose interest in eating altogether. Families often respond by encouraging bigger portions or preparing favorite dishes. While these efforts come from a place of love, when weight loss continues despite them, it signals something deeper happening, something that extra servings of pot roast or ice cream can't address. What's actually occurring is the body beginning its natural process of conserving energy. The appetite center in the brain becomes less responsive to hunger signals. The digestive system requires more energy to process food than the body can afford to spend. Beneath these physical changes lies an important emotional reality. Your loved one isn't rejecting your care or your cooking. Their body is simply following its own wisdom as it prepares for the journey ahead. If you notice significant, unexplained weight loss in an elderly family member, approach the situation with both practical support and emotional sensitivity. Offer small, nutrient-dense meals that are easy to eat. Focus on quality over quantity. Consider nutritional supplements if their doctor recommends them. But most importantly, shift your focus from fixing their weight loss to ensuring their comfort and dignity. Sometimes acceptance is the most loving response we can offer. Number 2. Profound fatigue that rest doesn't relieve. The second warning sign that often appears in an elderly person's final year is a deep, persistent exhaustion unlike anything they've experienced before. This isn't the normal tiredness that comes after a busy day, the kind that disappears after a good night's sleep. This is a bone-deep weariness that lingers regardless of how much they rest. It's as though their internal battery has begun to permanently drain, with no way to fully recharge it. You might notice your loved ones struggling to complete basic daily activities they once handled with ease. Getting dressed might require a rest break halfway through. A brief conversation might leave them depleted. Even favorite activities, reading a book, working on a hobby, or watching a favorite show, may now feel too demanding. Frank, a 92-year-old former high school principal I worked with, described it perfectly. "I haven't done a single thing today, but I feel like I've run a marathon. My body just won't listen to me anymore." This overwhelming fatigue stems from profound changes occurring within the body. The heart, no longer pumping as efficiently, struggles to circulate oxygen-rich blood to muscles and organs. The respiratory system works harder for less result. Metabolic processes slow dramatically, leaving less energy available for daily living. The body, in its wisdom, begins to conserve its dwindling resources. It prioritizes essential functions, keeping the heart beating, maintaining breathing, over activities like socializing, physical movement, or even staying awake for extended periods. Many family members find this change particularly difficult to witness. The person who once had energy to garden for hours, prepare elaborate meals, or engage in lively debates now sits quietly, perhaps dozing, in their chair throughout the day. Their world gradually contracts as their energy permits less and less engagement. There's often a difficult emotional component to this fatigue as well. Your loved one may feel frustrated or even ashamed at their inability to keep up with life as they once knew it. They may apologize for needing help or for not having energy for activities they once enjoyed with you. I've seen many families try to motivate their elderly loved one during this time, encouraging them to move more, stay engaged, or fight against the fatigue. While these encouragements come from a place of love, they sometimes miss what's actually happening. The body is following its natural course, conserving energy for its most essential tasks. What serves better than motivation is compassionate accommodation. Arrange their environment so less energy is required for daily tasks. Schedule important conversations or activities during their strongest hours, usually mornings for many older adults. Build in rest periods between activities. Most importantly, help them find peace in this new rhythm. Reassure them that resting is not lazy, it's necessary and appropriate. Create quiet moments of connection that don't demand energy they no longer have. Sit together watching birds at the feeder, hold hands while listening to favorite music, read aloud from books they love, or if you're noticing this profound fatigue in someone you love, Recognize it as their body speaking an important truth. Rather than fighting against it, consider how you might help them find comfort and meaning within the energy levels they now have. If you're still with me and finding these insights valuable, please comment 2 below to let me know you're here and engaged. Your presence means a lot to me as we navigate these difficult but important topics together. Number 3, increasing social withdrawal and loss of interest. The third signal that often appears in the year before an elderly person passes is a gradual but unmistakable withdrawal from the social connections and activities that once brought them joy. This change can be particularly heartbreaking for families to witness. The grandmother who never missed a family gathering now declines invitations. The father who loved telling stories at Sunday dinners now sits quietly, seemingly content to observe rather than participate. The aunt who maintained a vibrant social calendar now rarely calls friends or accepts visitors. This withdrawal isn't simply about becoming more introverted. It represents a fundamental shift in how your loved one relates to the world around them. They may seem to lose interest in hobbies that once captivated them, current events they previously followed closely, or even relationships they've treasured for decades. Eleanor, an 86-year-old woman I worked with, had been the heart of her church community for over 50 years. She organized committees, hosted gatherings, and never missed a Sunday service. When she began declining invitations and stepped down from her committees, her family initially attributed it to hearing difficulty or simple fatigue. Only later did they recognize it as part of a larger pattern signaling her final transition. This social withdrawal stems from multiple sources. Physically, social engagement requires energy that the body may no longer have available. Cognitively, following conversations becomes more challenging as processing speed slows. Emotionally, your loved one may be beginning, consciously or unconsciously, the process of letting go. In many wisdom traditions, this withdrawal is understood as a natural part of life's final chapter. It represents a turning inward, a shift from external engagement to internal reflection. The person begins to naturally disengage from the outer world as they prepare, on some level, for their transition from it. What makes this sign particularly difficult for families is the feeling of premature loss it creates. You may feel like you're losing your loved one emotionally before you lose them physically. Their physical presence remains while their emotional engagement diminishes, creating a unique form of grief that few discuss openly. Many families respond by trying to re-engage their loved one, planning more visits, bringing more grandchildren around, or creating more activities. While these efforts are understandable, they sometimes miss what your loved one actually needs during this time. Rather than fighting against this withdrawal, consider how you might honor it while maintaining connection in new, less demanding ways. Instead of large family gatherings that may overwhelm, arrange shorter visits with just 1 or 2 people. Replace conversation-heavy interactions with quiet togetherness, looking through photo albums, listening to favorite music, or simply sitting together in comfortable silence. One of the most precious gifts you can offer during this time is permission to engage differently, to participate less actively, to be present in a new way. Reassure them that their value in your life doesn't depend on their social energy or active participation. This withdrawal, though painful to witness, doesn't mean your loved one has stopped caring about you or others. Their heart remains connected, even as their external expression of that connection changes. Understanding this can transform how you experience this difficult transition together. Number 4, cognitive changes beyond normal aging. The fourth warning sign that may appear in an elderly person's final year involves changes in cognitive function that go beyond the normal senior moments we associate with aging. These aren't just occasional memory lapses or momentary confusion. Instead, they represent a more significant shift in how your loved one processes information, makes decisions, and relates to their environment. You might notice them becoming increasingly disoriented about time, mixing up morning and evening, losing track of days, or being confused about what year it is. Simple decisions that once came easily, what to wear, what to eat, which television program to watch, may now cause distress or indecision. Their ability to follow conversations, particularly in groups, often diminishes. You may find yourself repeatedly explaining things that they previously would have understood immediately. Abstract concepts become more difficult to grasp, while emotional memories often remain intact. James, a 91-year-old retired engineer I worked with, had always prided himself on his sharp mind and problem-solving abilities. His family became concerned when he began telling the same stories repeatedly in a single visit, forgot how to operate his microwave, and became disoriented in the grocery store he'd shopped in for decades. These weren't isolated incidents, but part of a pattern that signaled deeper changes. What makes these cognitive changes particularly significant is how they differ from the typical forgetfulness of aging or even early dementia. When they appear as part of end-of-life decline, they often progress more rapidly and may be accompanied by other signs we're discussing in this video. The underlying causes are complex. Reduced circulation means less oxygen and nutrients reaching the brain. Medications can impact cognitive function. The body's changing metabolism affects how brain cells operate. Sometimes existing cognitive impairments worsen as the body's overall resilience declines. For family members, these changes create profound emotional challenges. There's a special kind of grief in watching someone you love become confused, disoriented, or unable to recognize familiar people or places. You may feel as though you're losing them twice, once through these cognitive changes and eventually through death itself. What's essential to understand is that beneath these cognitive changes, your loved one's core self remains. Their emotional needs continue for love, respect, security, and connection, even when their ability to express those needs changes dramatically. Rather than correcting mistakes or testing their memory, focus on emotional connection. Enter their reality rather than insisting they enter yours. If they believe it's 1975 and they're waiting for their children to come home from school, redirecting them to 2023 may create distress rather than clarity. Instead, ask about their children, what they enjoy doing together, or what makes them proud as a parent. Simple adjustments to their environment can provide security during this time. Maintain familiar routines, reduce unnecessary decisions, create a calm, predictable setting with minimal distractions. Use clear, simple language, focusing on one idea at a time. Perhaps most importantly, recognize that cognitive changes don't diminish your loved one's humanity or worth. Their thoughts may be confused, but their feelings remain real and valid. By responding with patience and compassion rather than frustration or correction, you create emotional safety during a time when their world may feel increasingly disorienting. When these cognitive changes appear alongside other signs we're discussing, especially when they progress more quickly than expected, they often signal that your loved one has entered a new phase of their journey, one that calls for a different kind of care and connection. Number 5. Recurring infections and poor healing. The fifth warning sign that often appears in an elderly person's final year involves the body's diminished ability to heal and fight off infections, a clear indicator that the immune system is no longer functioning as it once did. You might notice that your loved one catches every cold that circulates, develops urinary tract infections more frequently, or battles recurring respiratory infections despite proper medication. Cuts or bruises that once healed quickly now linger for weeks. Surgical incisions take longer to close. Even minor skin tears or pressure sores become serious concerns. This vulnerability represents more than just getting older. It signals that the body's defense systems are significantly compromised as part of a larger pattern of physical decline. Martha, an 84-year-old woman I worked with, had always been remarkably healthy throughout her life. When she began developing pneumonia every few months, despite having no previous history of respiratory problems, her family recognized it as part of a larger change. Each infection left her weaker than before, creating a downward spiral that signaled her body's diminishing reserves. When the immune system weakens in late life, it creates a perfect storm of vulnerability. The skin, our first line of defense against pathogens, becomes thinner and more fragile. White blood cells no longer respond as effectively to invaders. The inflammatory response, essential for healing, becomes dysregulated. What makes this sign particularly telling is how it differs from normal aging. While all older adults experience some immune changes, when someone is nearing life's end, these changes accelerate dramatically. Infections that once resolved with simple treatments now require stronger interventions or don't fully clear, despite appropriate care. For family members, this pattern creates difficult decisions. You may find yourself weighing the benefits of aggressive treatments against their impact on your loved one's comfort and quality of life. You may question whether another round of antibiotics or another trip to the emergency room truly serves their best interests. What often confuses families is that infections in the elderly frequently don't present with typical symptoms. Instead of fever and pain, you might notice increased confusion, loss of appetite, or unusual fatigue. By the time obvious symptoms appear, the infection may be quite advanced. When these infections become recurrent, medical professionals often begin conversations about shifting from curative care to comfort-focused approaches. This isn't about giving up. It's about recognizing the body's natural trajectory and choosing interventions that provide the greatest comfort with the least burden. If your loved one is experiencing this pattern of infections and poor healing, consider several compassionate approaches. Focus on prevention where possible, maintaining good hydration, ensuring excellent skin care, supporting proper nutrition, and minimizing exposure to illness. Discuss with healthcare providers which infections merit aggressive treatment and which might be managed with comfort measures. Most importantly, recognize that this vulnerability isn't a failure, not yours in caregiving, not your loved ones in health maintenance, and not the medical teams in treatment. It's a natural part of the body's final chapter, a reminder of our inherent fragility as human beings. This recognition, though difficult, can guide you toward more meaningful choices about care and treatment. It allows you to focus not just on fighting infections, but on creating quality in whatever time remains, prioritizing comfort, meaningful connection, and alignment with your loved one's values and wishes. If you're still watching and finding value in these insights, please comment 3 below. Your engagement helps me know which topics matter most to you and our community. Number 6, sleep pattern disruptions. The sixth sign that often emerges in an elderly person's final year involves significant changes in how they sleep. Shifts that go beyond the normal sleep adjustments we associate with aging. While it's common knowledge that older adults often sleep less deeply and wake more frequently than younger people, the changes that signal approaching end of life are typically more pronounced and disruptive. You might notice your loved ones sleeping much more than usual, dozing throughout the day and still sleeping through the night. Or you might observe the opposite, increasing restlessness, inability to stay asleep for more than short periods, or complete reversal of day-night patterns where they're awake all night and sleep during daylight hours. William, a 90-year-old former school principal I worked with, had always maintained rigid sleep habits. In bed by 9:30 p.m., awake at 6:00 a.m., no naps. When he began sleeping 16 hours daily, his family initially attributed it to new medication. Only later did they recognize it as part of a constellation of changes, signaling his body's preparation for its final transition. These sleep disruptions stem from multiple sources. The brain's sleep-wake control centers often begin functioning differently. Hormones that regulate sleep cycles, particularly melatonin, may be produced at different times or in different amounts. Decreased physical activity and reduced exposure to natural light further disrupt normal rhythms. For many elderly people approaching life's end, sleep becomes more fragmented. Periods of sleep interspersed with wakefulness throughout the 24-hour day, rather than consolidated into nighttime hours. They may experience periods of heightened alertness at unusual times, sometimes with surprising clarity and energy, followed by profound drowsiness. Some people in their final months experience what medical professionals call terminal restlessness, periods of agitation, confusion, and inability to get comfortable that often intensify at night. Others may sleep so deeply during certain periods that they're difficult to rouse, even for meals or medication. These sleep changes create practical and emotional challenges for families. Caregivers themselves become sleep deprived, trying to monitor and support their loved one through disrupted nights. There's legitimate worry about safety when an elderly person is awake and potentially wandering during hours when supervision is reduced. Beyond the practical concerns, these sleep disruptions often carry emotional weight for families. There's something particularly lonely about being awake in the middle of the night, when your loved one is confused or agitated, feeling as though you're the only one navigating these dark waters. What's important to understand is that these changes, though difficult, aren't usually something to fix with strong sleep medications, which can sometimes increase confusion or risk of falls. Instead, they call for adaptation and support. Create an environment that promotes the best possible sleep, a comfortable room temperature, reduction of unnecessary noise and light, and a comfortable sleeping surface. Maintain consistent routines that help orient your loved one to time of day. For daytime sleepiness, gentle activity and natural light can help, while soothing routines support nighttime rest. For those experiencing terminal restlessness, comfort measures become especially important. Gentle massage, soft music, reassuring presence, and sometimes appropriate medications recommended by hospice or palliative care providers can help reduce distress. Perhaps most importantly, release expectations about normal sleep. The body, approaching life's end, follows different patterns than we're accustomed to. By accepting these changes rather than fighting against them, you can reduce frustration and focus instead on providing comfort and presence in whatever waking moments you share. Number 7. Changes in blood pressure and temperature regulation. The seventh warning sign that often appears in an elderly person's final year involves the body's declining ability to regulate its basic functions, particularly blood pressure and temperature. These changes may seem technical, but they represent critical shifts in how the body maintains its internal balance, or homeostasis. As the autonomic nervous system begins to function less efficiently, these fundamental regulatory mechanisms begin to falter. You might notice your loved one complaining of feeling cold all the time, needing extra blankets even in warm rooms. Their hands and feet may feel icy to the touch, while their core remains warm. Or you might observe the opposite, episodes of unexplained sweating or feeling uncomfortably warm regardless of the actual room temperature. Blood pressure often becomes unstable during this time. Your loved one may experience dramatic drops when changing positions, leading to dizziness or even falls. Or their blood pressure may fluctuate widely throughout the day, causing periods of fatigue, confusion, or headaches. Robert, an 87-year-old man I worked with, began experiencing such severe temperature regulation problems that he wore winter sweaters in July while his air conditioning ran. His blood pressure readings would swing from dangerously high to concerning low within hours. These changes coincided with other signs on our list, creating a clear picture of his body's systems beginning to wind down. These regulatory changes stem from the gradual failure of the autonomic nervous system, the part of our nervous system that controls unconscious bodily functions. This system requires precise coordination between the brain, spinal cord, and peripheral nerves. When this coordination begins to falter, temperature control and blood pressure stability are often among the first functions affected. The cardiovascular system itself undergoes changes during this time. Blood vessels become less elastic, making it harder for the body to adjust blood pressure quickly when needed. The heart may not respond as efficiently to demands for increased or decreased output. The hypothalamus, essentially the body's thermostat, becomes less sensitive to temperature fluctuations. For family members, these changes create both practical challenges and emotional distress. The practical aspects involve figuring out how to keep your loved one comfortable, layering blankets, adjusting room temperatures, monitoring for signs of dizziness or falls related to blood pressure drops. The emotional component often comes from recognizing what these changes represent. There's something particularly poignant about holding a loved one's chronically cold hands or watching them struggle with basic comfort. These experiences make tangible the reality that their body is functioning differently at a fundamental level. If you're noticing these regulatory changes, several approaches can help. For temperature issues, layers of lightweight, easily removable clothing allow for quick adjustments. Keep extra blankets readily available, and consider warm beverages for cold episodes. For blood pressure fluctuations, work with healthcare providers to adjust medications appropriately and learn proper positioning techniques to minimize dramatic drops when standing or sitting. When these regulatory problems appear alongside other signs we've discussed, particularly when they represent a clear change from your loved one's previous patterns, they often signal that the body's most basic systems are beginning to falter. This usually isn't something that can be fully corrected or reversed, but rather managed for maximum comfort. Understanding these changes as part of a natural process, rather than as problems to be solved, can shift your approach from frustration to acceptance. The goal becomes not fixing the unfixable, but rather creating an environment of comfort, dignity, and safety during this vulnerable time. Number 8. Increasing difficulty with swallowing and hydration. While not always discussed openly, one of the most significant indicators that an elderly person may be in their final months involves changes in their ability to swallow safely and maintain proper hydration. This 8th sign, added to our original list of 7 because of its importance, often appears gradually but becomes increasingly problematic as the body's systems continue to slow. You might first notice your loved one coughing more frequently during meals, especially with certain foods or liquids. They may begin avoiding particular textures, often starting with items that are difficult to chew or swallow, like meat or raw vegetables. Many elderly people in this phase begin preferring softer foods or liquids, sometimes without explicitly stating why. As the issue progresses, you might observe them taking smaller bites, eating more slowly, or leaving meals unfinished despite previous assurances they would eat. Some experience a sensation of food sticking in their throat, while others develop a fearful relationship with eating due to choking episodes. Dorothy, a 93-year-old woman whose family consulted with me, had always been known for her hearty appetite and enjoyment of meals. When she began leaving her plate mostly untouched and drinking only small sips of water, her family initially attributed it to changing tastes. Only after a frightening choking incident did they realize she had been struggling silently with swallowing difficulties for months. These swallowing changes, medically termed dysphagia, stem from multiple sources near life's end. The complex coordination required for safe swallowing involves over 50 pairs of muscles and nerves working in precise sequence, a symphony of movement that becomes disrupted as neurological function declines. Decreased saliva production makes the mechanical process of swallowing more difficult. Weakened cough reflexes reduce the body's ability to protect the airway when swallowing goes awry. The impacts extend beyond nutrition. Difficulty swallowing often leads to decreased fluid intake, resulting in chronic dehydration that further compounds other symptoms. When eating becomes challenging or frightening, mealtimes, once sources of pleasure and social connection, may become anxiety-producing, leading to further isolation or withdrawal. For family members, these changes create heart-wrenching dilemmas. There's a primal human instinct to nourish those we love, to offer food and drink as expressions of care. When these basic acts of provision become complicated or even dangerous, caregivers often experience profound distress and helplessness. If you're noticing these swallowing difficulties, several approaches can help maximize comfort and safety. Consult with a speech therapist who specializes in geriatric care for specific swallowing techniques. Adjust food textures. Often pudding-like consistencies are easiest to manage. Position your loved one upright during meals and for at least 30 minutes afterward. Offer smaller, more frequent meals rather than 3 large ones. For hydration, offer small sips frequently throughout the day rather than large glasses of water. Consider thickened liquids if thin liquids cause coughing. Ice chips, popsicles, or frozen fruit can provide hydration in forms that may be easier to manage than plain water. As difficult as it may be to consider, there often comes a point when artificial nutrition, feeding tubes, is discussed. While appropriate in some medical situations, research has shown that feeding tubes rarely benefit elderly people in their final months and may actually increase discomfort. These decisions are deeply personal and should align with your loved one's previously expressed wishes and values. When swallowing difficulties appear alongside other signs we've discussed, they often signal that the body is beginning the natural process of winding down. This recognition, though painful, can guide families toward choices that prioritize comfort over intervention, quality over quantity, and peace over prolongation. If you're still watching and finding value in these insights, please comment 4 below to let me know you're engaged with this important information. Final thoughts. Finding peace in awareness. As we come to the end of our discussion about these 8 warning signs, I want to acknowledge the emotional weight of what we've covered together. Recognizing these changes in someone you love deeply is never easy. It stirs fears, anxieties, and profound questions about mortality, both theirs and ultimately our own. Yet I've found in my work with countless families that knowledge, even difficult knowledge, ultimately serves compassion. Understanding these signs, unexpected weight loss, profound fatigue, social withdrawal, cognitive changes, recurring infections, sleep disruptions, temperature regulation problems, and swallowing difficulties, provides a map for an otherwise bewildering journey. When we can name what we're seeing and place it within the natural progression of life's final chapter, it becomes less frightening and more meaningful. We shift from constantly fighting against unchangeable realities to working within them to create the most peaceful, dignified experience possible. I've seen families transformed by this awareness. Instead of spending their precious remaining time pushing against the inevitable, urging more food, more activity, more engagement than their loved one can manage, they redirect that energy toward creating moments of genuine connection, adapted to new limitations. They learn to measure success differently. Success becomes not about extending life at all costs, but about filling whatever time remains with comfort, meaning, and love. It becomes about honoring the person's dignity while acknowledging their changing needs. This awareness also allows for practical preparation, completing important legal documents, having meaningful conversations while cognitive ability permits, arranging appropriate support services before crisis strikes. These preparations, while sometimes uncomfortable to initiate, ultimately reduce stress and allow more focus on emotional and spiritual dimensions of this sacred time. Perhaps most importantly, recognizing these signs early gives you the gift of presence. When you understand that time may be limited, you naturally become more intentional about how you spend it. Petty disagreements fade in importance, old wounds find paths toward healing, words of love and appreciation move from someday to today. As you reflect on what you've learned in this video, consider how you might apply this knowledge not from a place of fear, but from a foundation of love. How might recognizing these signs early help you provide better care, have important conversations, or simply be more fully present with your loved one during this significant transition? Remember that while these signs often indicate that life is approaching its conclusion, the timing remains uncertain. Some people exhibit these changes for months or even years before death, while others decline more quickly. The signs are not a precise calendar, but rather guideposts, helping you navigate unfamiliar territory. What matters most isn't determining exactly how much time remains, but rather using whatever time there is with awareness, intention, and love. In my experience, families who approach this time with open eyes, neither denying reality nor becoming overwhelmed by it, create space for profound moments of connection, healing, and even joy amid the sadness. If you found this video helpful, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more content that supports families through life's most challenging transitions. Your engagement helps us reach others who might benefit from this information when they need it most. I'd love to know what resonated most strongly with you today. Was there a particular sign that helped you make sense of changes you've been observing? Or perhaps a perspective that shifted your understanding of this life transition? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for staying with me through this important conversation. Remember that recognizing these signs isn't about surrendering hope, but rather about redirecting hope. From hoping for more time, regardless of quality, to hoping for peace, comfort, and meaningful connection in whatever time remains. By approaching this sacred transition with knowledge, compassion, and presence, You offer your loved one the most precious gift possible, the assurance that they won't walk this final path alone, but rather hand in hand with those who love them most.